Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mike's, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com. You can find cool stuff in stock every day, and check out our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. And check out our altar sleeve, support the show by using the code MAGICMIKES to check out for 5% off anything in the store. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, MTG Nerd Girl.
Hey guys, welcome back.
Ruben Bressler.
Hey, how's it going?
We happen to be... We happen to be here today
For the Capenna top
for the
10.
new Capenna place. We're doing this. We're doing it. I was talking through it.
Yeah, the cigar's a good prop, not necessarily a great speaking aid.
It ain't supposed to be. It's supposed to be. All right, it's wonderful. Okay, so
It's great.
we also begin with our choice, the Tom comment from last week in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who was the most eloquent and letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our top 10 cutest cards, Ruben.
Yeah, how you doing? You're looking cute too.
You doing them.
Not bad. Hey,
Absolutely fabulous.
nice suspenders.
Right.
Anyway, I got distracted there for a second, but Jason Kurashima had the comment that I wanted to talk about, which he wrote, I sat there watching and waiting for my choice to show up. I thought finally I got there with Ruben's number 2, but the stats were wrong. Even though we are going back to Dominaria, we probably won't get to check in on him. And that's sad. Just remember, he's not a bad guy. He's just trying to feed his tiny family. My choice for honorable mention is Tiny Bones, Trinket Thief.
Aww.
Yeah, once a $50 mythic, these days about $11, back to the real world. Tiny Bones Trinket Thief is a black and generic mana, a 1/2 legendary skeleton rogue from Jumpstart. At the beginning of each end step, if an opponent discarded a card this turn, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. And for 2 black and 4 generic mana, each opponent with no cards in hand loses 10 life. And it's adorable.
It is extremely cute.
High levels of cuteness. So,
And it's a fun theme. I liked the deck when I got to play it on Arena for a bit.
yeah, there's actually Jim Davis did a really cool discard craziness deck with 4 Tiny Bones in the main. They went on Cool Stuff Inc. today. So check out some content.
Excellent Brawl Commander as well. I do hope that we get more lore about Tiny Bones. We actually don't know the gender of Tiny Bones. The gender of Tiny Bones is undead at present. So we don't know what Tiny Bones used to be. But currently, they're adorable.
Currently fantastic. Well, congratulations to Jason. Please contact us on social media for your prize, ideally a Twitter DM at MagicMikesCast. Thanks again to CoolStuffInc.com for sponsoring this giveaway, and stay tuned for our top 10 list this week, and maybe you can win next week's free gift certificate, because it's time to talk about the streets. We're taking it to the streets. They wrote a whole song about it, and we got in these outfits for a reason. So let's go. Ruben, what's number 10?
Well, we're starting off strong because my number 10 is the only hire that I saw on someone else's list. So
this is the first of 5 for me, everybody.
Oh, boy.
So, Nerd Girl, you got to pull us through number 10 here.
Yeah, I can definitely carry us here on this one. So my top 10 is, it doesn't have the same system of top 10 that I typically do, which is like a balancing of how relevant it was, how relevant it is, more deliberate. This set, because we haven't gotten a chance to play with it, is more just about how these cards make me feel. And whether that's for the art or whether that is for how competitive I think it's going to be or how good it'll be in limited, it's a big mix. So this card is a card that makes me very excited for the feel, the flavor, the fun, and just in general, a beautiful piece of art for what I think is going to be a very fun theme, and that's Rogue's Gallery. Rogue's Gallery is a 3 mana sorcery, 2 colors and a black, that says for each color, return up to 1 target creature card of that color from your graveyard to your hand. So you get to bring back a bunch of different creatures. It's likely going to hit 2 creatures, a lot of multicolors in the set, so you can hit a lot of different things. So that's pretty unique. So it's just going to be a fun card advantage card for limited. But if you take a look at the art, it's got this really sweet lineup with a bunch of different characters that I can envision being in the new Capenna plane. And just a bunch of shifty looking characters.
Yeah, this was the card that I put the usual suspects up against.
Yep.
My wonderful photoshopping that I did there. This card is just really cool, and I also understand it's probably as close as they're going to get to be able to put the usual suspects on Magic cards. So I'll take what they gave us.
Yeah, really good. It gives us our police lineup, archetype, trope. Not to mention the fact this is a 5-for-1 in a lot of cases. Not a terrible card at all. So
yeah,
you out there that love your Niv Mizzet Reborn Commander decks, here you go.
Yeah, absolutely. This is sweet. All right. So I believe, is it Scryfall down for anybody else? I don't know why that website.
Scryfall was having trouble, but I have it up.
Oh, okay. Well, it wasn't working for me, unfortunately, right now. So that sucks. Let's move on here to our number 9. Ruben, what's number 9?
My number 9 is a card that's very exciting for a number of reasons. When the red-green Primeval Titan Kessig Wolfrun deck came out, we sort of got our first view of what we affectionately referred to as the 2/4/6 ramp mana base.
Mm-hmm.
Previously, what we were doing was just playing Rampant Growth on turn 2, and then that was all the mana ramp we wanted. But with Kessig Wolfrun, we didn't want to stop there. We needed to cast things like Explosive Vegetation, Solemn Simulacrum. We wanted to get even bigger. Explosive Veggies had its time in the sun earlier, of course, to be able to cast things like Rorik's Blade Wing back in the day. But really, the genesis of the 2/4/6 came about then. And so now we've got Hedron Archive, we've got Key to the Archive, we've got a couple of ways to ramp us big. But it's never been on one card before. And that's why I'm really excited by Black Market Tycoon.
My number 10.
Well, right there.
Right there with you, buddy.
Black Market Tycoon is a 2/2 cat rogue. It's a rare for a red and a green mana. At the beginning of your upkeep, Black Market Tycoon deals 2 damage to you for each treasure you control, and it has tap, create a treasure token. So if you're willing to take some damage, this is all the ramp you need.
Yeah, this is a bear with a sick ability that makes me very happy, mainly because it feels like weirdly pushed in some ways. In some ways it doesn't, because you got to wait a whole turn for its ability and yada yada yada. But ramp is ramp, and it's making an artifact, and sometimes that matters in ways that isn't always obvious.
And this isn't necessarily a downside. Evan, do you mind if I go into my 9 here?
Go for it.
So this is one of the archetypes that I think I'm the most excited about in Limited as well.
Ooh.
I think it's going to be a pretty fun thing. This doesn't seem overly punishing if you're using the mana pretty regularly. You get to play a bear that you can then ramp with each turn until it's no longer necessary. And then you have a nice wide board and you get to do some gruel stompy things. And so for my number 9, I was deciding between putting this signpost that Ruben has picked or a counterpart, which I think will make a very good card in Limited, and that is the Stimulus package.
Ooh.
These 2 cards go hand in hand. Perfect. I'm glad they're right next to each other. Stimulus package is 2 colorless, a red and a green, so it fits in the any of the gruel color wedges, and it is an enchantment that says when a Stimulus package enters the battlefield, create 2 treasure tokens. You may sacrifice a treasure token to create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature. So we're going to be getting to make a bunch of cool treasures with a bunch of different cards, while also then getting to put those into creatures that are relevant creature types, develop a wide board, and get some gruel smashy going.
Yeah.
I'm all about the gruel smashy. This is the first, people were posting that GIF of Homer at the donut factory, and they're just shoving it down his mouth because it's take the treasures. Here's treasures. Do it. Make more treasures. Make all the treasures. You're like, okay, I got treasures. Jesus.
Turning treasures into creatures is a big deal.
Make
This in
pictures of
particular,
treasures.
there you go. Perfect. This in particular with the Black Market expert, this comes out on turn 3, and then your 2/2 just makes a new 1/1 every turn.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention the fact that it's a citizen, which is a somewhat relevant creature type in this set for a variety of other cards. That's going to be a tough card to beat in Limited.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'll take it. And for my number 9 here, this is a really interesting card that just will not pull up on Scryfall. So please bear with me for a second. All right, here we go. This is a wonderful card, and it's also kind of unique in the way that Wizards will sometimes don't know, throw a bone here and there for certain weird little things. Like, you want things that will activate and help activate your cool Mox Amber deck. And Errant Street Artist is a 1-mana legendary creature. Not to mention, we do have Magecraft, and we also got another spell that we have flashbacks and all this other good stuff that can go a little silly. Errant Street Artist is 1 blue mana for an 0/3 rare legendary human rogue with Flash, Defender, and Haste. And for a blue and a generic mana tap, copy target spell you control that wasn't cast. You may choose new targets for the copy. So it also works great with Casualty that's in the set. So that's pretty cool too.
Your number 10 was my number 9 and vice versa.
Oh my goodness. Of course it was.
I mean, this is a 1-mana defender. How could I not have it on my list for my Arcades the Strategist deck? Mm-hmm. Much less the fact that it also has haste and flash, and also gives you a ton of extra things to do if you're already copying a bunch of spells. Like you mentioned, Casualty is the main way to take advantage of this card, but there's a number of ways to make copies of spells. So if you're already copying spells, this is another great way to take advantage.
Yeah, I like that this is something that can go into limited, but also has some good implications for more constructed gameplay. When you see cards like this and they're just kind of often dead in the limited environment, that tends to make me very sad. But I think this could it can make Casualty much better.
Like if you're playing, I mean, even like 3 Casualty cards, I think it's arguable. Like especially if it's a really good one. Let's say there's a Casualty card. There's one that is kind of like a Deadly Dispute that lets you look at cards and put one in your hand, and the other one like at the bottom or whatever. And there's some other Casualty cards that are really great. So drawing cards and all that other stuff.
There are some huge finishers in the set too. Like Cut Your Losses is extremely. I mean, it's already traumatized, but then if it's 3/4 of their deck, then that's a bigger deal. Much less if you have something like Obnixilis in your deck or another of the big bomb cards.
Right.
They also have things like Halo Fountain, which can untap this at instant speed with spells still on the stack. There are some pretty interesting things we're going to be able to do with this card.
I'm ready for more untap symbol. That's all I'm saying. It's time to bring it back. You're bringing it back. We're untapping people. And it's great.
This is definitely the best thing to enable the legendary sorceries. From Dominaria, though, because being a 1-mana legend is huge. Being a 1-mana legend with flash that you can bring in at the end of the turn, untap and Karn's Temporal Sundering or untap and Urza's Ruinous Blast. That's a big game.
Excellent game. My game is this cigar here. my $3 prop. I'm going to get the most use out of it because I have no number 8, but that's okay. Ruben, what's number 8?
My number 8 is a card that is priced to move, ladies and gentlemen. And I say it that way because this card is definitely buying and selling and trading quite a bit. We were commenting that there are a whole lot of 3/2s in this set. Not a ton of 2/3s. Much less 2/3s for 2 mana. Much less 2/3s for 2 mana that are going to shut off a thing on your opponent's side of the board and give you that instead. Scheming Fence is ridiculous.
It's pretty sick.
Scheming Fence is a white and a blue for a 2/3 human citizen, a rare from the Streets of New Capenna, that as it enters the battlefield, you may choose a non-land permanent. Activated abilities of the chosen permanent can't be activated. That includes mana abilities.
Oof.
Scheming Fence has all activated abilities of the chosen permanent except for loyalty abilities. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to activate those abilities. Man, it sure does feel bad when your opponent has the Soul Ring on turn 1 or the Arcane Signet on turn 2 in Commander. Wouldn't it be nice if I had that instead? Much less if they have, a Gilded Lotus or some, chromatic orrery on their side of the board. This thing's unbelievably good.
Yeah, anytime you're taking a thing from your opponent, it's kind of just an effective 2-for-1, which always feels kind of amazing. It's hard to beat that.
Yeah, for those who don't know the lingo, a fence is the person who will sell your illegal goods after you have acquired them.
That's right.
He takes it from you, and then
one of my LARP characters is a fence, so I know a lot about being a scheming fence.
There you go. Nerd Girl, what's number 8?
All right, so this, I promise, is the last one that's just purely limited related.
Right.
I don't think this is going to see any constructed play. I know you think it's okay. You like limited.
I love limited. It's great.
But one of the things that I like a lot is when, non-blue black are playable in limited, and sometimes we get that not to be the case. And a good way to make that happen is by giving other colors draw abilities. And that's what we see here on Inspiring Overseer. This is a 3-mana 2/1 flying angel cleric that says when it enters the battlefield, you gain a life and draw a card. This is a very similar ability to a card we saw that was very good in limited called Cloudkin Seer. If I remember correctly. Yep. Same stats, same cost. It drew a card. It didn't gain a life.
Nope.
So this is even better than that. This is a creature we typically see in blue and are happy. I can't imagine. Like, this could say lose 2 life, and I would still think that this card was great.
Yeah. Like, it's an angel and a cleric. Like, and a cleric.
It's an angel and a cleric, and it draws a card, and it gains life. At common.
For 3 mana.
It's insane.
I actually could see this getting some play in other things, like a lot of life gain decks that trigger off the life gain ability, in addition to getting more cards, because those decks tend to run out very quickly.
I think this thing could see some serious play. This card is priced to move, as he mentioned.
Angel being another very relevant creature type, in addition to cleric outside of this set. Angel in this set, also super relevant. Priest of Forgotten Lore from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms was a hit as a 3-drop in your white decks. The Collected Company Angels deck is a thing that happens sometimes. I mean, we've still got the Pyre of Heroes cleric deck that we can kind of do some stuff with. Sacrificing like this to go get an Ora with your Pyre of Heroes, that's a game I'm interested in.
It's real. Absolutely. And I mean, even in the older formats with Collected Company, I mean, I want to gain life and draw cards and have a chump blocker that's irrelevant to everything I'm doing. Like, we may or may not be talking about a sweet 2-mana angel that's also in this set that is sick on the curve. Right. Like, it's just good clean living is what this thing is. And honestly, it's one of those where it's just so brutally efficient that I love it because I'm a spike and we care about rate. And this is the best rate we've ever seen on this card. And it's a white. Okay. Sure. Yep. Let's see here. So that was Nerd Girls number 8. Let me get it in here properly. Man, this card is so sick, though. Absolutely love it. Let's move on here to number 7. Ruben, what you got?
My number 7 is a 7/7 for 7 mana.
Oh, of course it is.
It is very good. Like,
very good.
It's the most expensive card mana-wise in my top 10. I almost always pick 1-drops and 2-drops. The rest of my list is 1s, 2s, and 3s, I think. But I chose this 7-drop because I think that this is worth it. Very rarely do you get the type of return on investment that you get from Titan of Industry. Which also, classy pun, like, the first time I read the name Titan of Industry, I just couldn't stop smiling to myself. In a set full of great references, the name on this card just makes me happy. Titan of Industry is 4 generic green for a 7-mana mythic elemental with reach and trample that says when it enters the battlefield, you choose 2 of the following. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Target player gains 5 life. Make a 4/4 Rhino Warrior creature token, or put a shield counter on a creature you control. Those are some choices. I mean, this will catch you up. This will keep you ahead. This will get rid of a problem. This thing does all the things. The best blink target possible. Not to mention the fact that it's just a huge demolishing building monster.
Yeah, it also has sneaky reach. This is not a thing that people will think has reach because it just looks like a building. And it's going to eat some creatures. There's a non-zero chance. Even if you're dead on board, don't scoop because they'll just attack their flyer into this or something stupid. I think that these cards are always a bit silly. They feel a little too big. But yeah, they're great on a top end. They're fun. And honestly, the art is pretty sick. It's like a building that turned into an elemental. It's pretty flavorful. Yeah,
it's like in the movie Big, where they were like, the buildings can come to life, and they're like, that's not cool, like Transformers. but it kind of is, and it's still a giant building with arms, and I'm so glad it's on your list. This is Timmy through and through. This is here so I can feel things. It's doing super awesome stuff when it enters the battlefield. It's just a butt ton of green mana, so who cares? And sometimes you need big, dumb, green mythic idiots.
And also with Black Market Tycoon, this comes out on just Black Market Tycoon. This comes down on turn 4?
5, I think.
5? Maybe 5.
Maybe 5.
I guess we need one extra treasure token to make it come down on turn 4.
No, we can make one that turn, right? So let's make one 3 and then 4 and then turn 5. You're making the third one with the 5th mana, and that's boom, and off you go. Perfect. All right. I mean, let's go. I mean, if this is something good and constructed, okay. Like it doesn't have hexproof, for God's sake.
If we also get an explosive vegetation, I don't know if we have one in standard right now, but something like a migratory.
I think there's a 4 mana find 2 lands, something rather.
Is there a 4 mana find 2 lands, like a circuitous route, migratory
Cultivate
formation
type card, right?
Something like that.
Well, puts 2 into play. If we have a mana rock like a Mind Stone, and then a 4 mana go get 2 lands and put them into play tapped, like a circuitous route, that gets us to 7 to have this come into play turn 4, which is crazy.
And then they kill it, but you got like 5 life and a 4/4 or a 4/4 with a shield counter on it. It's pretty awesome. I mean, putting the shield counter on this thing is obviously fantastic. Yeah. So, all right, let's move on here to Nerd Girls number 7. What you got?
All right, so this is just a simple card that, like, I don't know, brings me joy. I don't know if this is going to get to see a lot of play in Constructed because I'm not much of a brewer myself, but I hope so. These are the kinds of cards that bring me joy. And that's the Park Heights Pegasus for just 2 mana. We got a green and a plains. You get a flying, trampling Pegasus that is a 2/1. And it says whenever it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. If you had 2 or more creatures enter the battlefield under your control this turn. When creatures are good, it feels like it's a pretty good constructed format for me. And when you just get people just staring at each other with control mirrors all day, that feels kind of boring. So I hope cards like this get a chance to be played.
Yeah, this is the exact type of card that I blow all my wild cards, building the cool, whatever theme deck is in the set. The enchantments was similar in Kamigawa, where I'm going to put together the Naya tokens deck, and you definitely playing for this thing, and it's probably not going to be that good, and something later on is going to make it really good, and the rotation is going to make it better, and then eventually I'll get to play the super cool deck that this thing supercharges, maybe out of the gates, but probably not.
I mean, this thing has so many abilities for 2 mana. It
true.
Seems impossible for this not to be good. We have a lot of cards that can make 2 tokens for 3 mana. Omen of the Sun style cards. Not necessarily that card exactly. That's the one I'm thinking of in my head. But a 2/2 that comes in with a 1/1, right? We see that card all the time, so it's not going to be that hard to trigger a Park Heights Pegasus.
Let's hope so. So for my number 7 here, this is a card that was one of the first things that they had previewed, and I just thought it was neat. It reads great. I don't know if it's any good, but I do know that it reads much better because you get the effect of the turn you play it, and the effect just sounds bananas. And that's thanks to you having the lawyers on your side with Broker's Ascendancy. It's blue, white, and green for a rare enchantment at the beginning of your end step. You put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control and a loyalty counter on each planeswalker you control, and you just do that forever until this goes away. And they stack. So let's go.
Yeah, limited best of 1. This is going to be a huge pain in the butt.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, you need to run some enchantment hate probably in this format because there's some pretty insane enchantments. Because
of the 5 ascendancies that are at rare, and there's some other good ones too. Yeah,
there's some good enchantments.
Yeah, and also, I mean, this is Atraxa, but not a
the enchantment. Yeah,
yeah, and again, like you said, not legendary. Definitely really good in your Super Friends decks. Not to mention your tokens decks. It is a thing that requires a board presence already, but if you go 1-drop, 2-drop this, it's going to be tough to lose.
Yeah, this card seems very, very, very scary. Let's move on here to number 6. Ruben, what's number 6?
My number 6, man, if you had to explain what a fence was, you're going to have to explain to the people what a heavy is.
Hey.
I'll explain what a heavy is. A heavy mob is a mob of enforcers. Evan's dressed up as a heavy. They're going to come to your door and they're going to not leave until their knuckles are red, right? As opposed to this kind of enforcer, which will show up and maybe we try to convince you, maybe we try to talk. Heavy mob's not there for that. Heavy mob is there to break your kneecaps. And that's what a shakedown heavy is here to do as well.
That's right.
Shakedown heavy is a 2 generic and a black for a 6/4 with menace.
Oof.
All right.
That's a lot.
So this is our undercosted. This is our rotting regisaur, our desecration demon for the set, right?
Mm-hmm.
The undercosted, overpowered black creature. Whenever Shakedown Heavy attacks, the defending player may have you draw a card. If they do, untap Shakedown Heavy and remove it from combat. So it's kind of got that tribute mechanic, right? The browbeat Punisher mechanic to it,
Right.
where it's like either I deal you a bunch of damage or I get the card, which is exactly what a heavy would do. Is it comes to your house and it breaks your kneecaps unless you pay your debts.
That's right. We need a payment. We need a little something, take back to the boss man. And I ain't talking about pictures of Spider-Man. Need the cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this card, I mean, even in, maybe I'm overthinking this card, but I think that for 2 generic and a black, if you could go Dark Ritual Shakedown Heavy and Legacy, I think that that's better than Dark Ritual Rotting Regisaur. Right?
Is that better than Phyrexian Negator, right? Which is kind of the classic.
It's significantly better than Phyrexian Negator.
Right. Okay. Because
it's a 6/4 menace that lets you draw cards.
It's also lifted lightning bolt. So.
Yep, dodges lightning bolt.
It's true. That's scary.
So probably not good enough for that format, but I mean,
never know.
Something short of that, it seems quite good.
Yeah, this is a card I'm not really sure how to evaluate. These are the kind of cards that are very interesting decks, like the Rotting Regisaur deck. Like oftentimes when you see them, you don't know how good they're going to be because it's very dependent on the format around them. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
so in a bottle, you just don't think this is that playable? I think I'd try it, right?
It's tough to tell. I think that Nerd Girl's right. It's tough to tell because I think it's going to be dependent upon A, if there's a planeswalker that can deal with it effectively. B, if there is a Thunderous Rebuke / Lava Coil that happens.
Well, I'm just thinking about in limited when you're saying,
I
think the most important part of this in limited is that it untaps itself. You
Sure.
get the card and it untaps itself because part of the desecration demon problem was it tapped the creature and you were like, well, crap, you can sack your dude and I lose. Well, that doesn't happen here. So either it's 6 and you have to block with 2 people, or I get a card and I still have a 6/4 blocker. So seems all right.
Yeah, I think this one is a lot better than Regisaur. It depends on how easy this is going to be to remove. Like I know, if this deck is on the draw, then Wandering Emperor takes care of this pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
At least in Standard. In Legacy, I'm not sure. The Menace is scary. There's going to be a lot of times where your opponents are just going to let you draw a bajillion cards.
Yeah.
Right. And, the Regisaur would give you a drawback whether or not you attacked with it. This one, there's no drawback whatsoever. If you just sit there with the 6/4 and say go, you lost nothing. So I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's like the greatest thing ever, but I think it's okay. And there's some cards that have some synergy with it. That green card that's the hideaway green card and thing that cares about a creature with power 7. Nixilis sacking this to put 6 counters on his copy. Should be really cool. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with this guy. All right, let's move on to Nerd Girls number 6. What you got?
All right. So my number 6 is a card that I hope sees some play. I think this is going to be kind of interesting. I think it'll be a really good sideboard card for creature decks. We've been seeing a lot of siding of again, I don't know card names very well. I always forget them. Discard 2, exile their graveyard. People have been bringing that. What?
Go blank.
Go blank, yes. So
yes.
I think Unlicensed Hurst might be a go blank for creature heavy decks. This is a 2-mana vehicle. Its power and toughness are XX. For no mana cost, So you can just do this without crewing. You can tap to exile 2 target cards from a single graveyard, obliterating your opponent's game plan, and then its power and toughness are equal to the number of cards exiled this way for only crew 2, which seems pretty cheap. The power and toughness on this is going to get out of hand very quickly. It might not be the plan you want to go for in your aggressive creature deck if you don't have things to remove from your opponent's graveyard, but this is a pretty good sideboard card, and unlike Go Blank, that only works the one time. When you're trying to fight a Leer or something, you want something that's ongoing to hit those targets, which is really nice. You can slowly start removing their spells and then continue to do so while also not crewing and protecting this from any removal that they might have.
I think this card's great.
Yeah.
Card's insane. Card is absolutely insane, for
Right.
sure. There will not be a playable Reanimator deck in Standard as long as this card exists. This is instant speed, targeted graveyard hate. So anything that targets the graveyard, be it a regrowth effect, be it a raise dead effect, be it an unearth or a reanimate, none of it is going to be relevant as long as this thing's around. And it's a finisher. So eventually, once you're done, it's going to have 2 cards, 4 cards, 6 cards, 8 cards. Doesn't take long for this thing to get massive.
And, to take out yours and theirs. And, it fights on the same axis as Lion Sash, which can also become a non-creature artifact in some ways. This is by default a non-creature artifact, which I think is better for a whole variety of reasons. And, this is one of those things where it's like, there's just going to be so much graveyard hate that exists. Leyline of the Voids and onwards. It's just something you have to be aware of. And that whatever deck you're going to take, you have to expect to see the unlicensed hearses of the world and know that there's got to be a game plan there because there's too much graveyard hate otherwise. All right, let's move on here to my number 6. I love this stupid freaking card. I love how it broke a new record with the most damage that you can deal with 3 cards, which is the black mana spell that makes 13 2/2 zombies.
Okay.
And then I think you can flash it back is what you can do with that card. And then there's a card that makes X 1/1s where X is the number of creatures you control.
Okay.
And then you have this in play because Devilish Valet has
wow.
number to the 24th power is how insane this guy gets. It's just crazy. This card is so sick. Please be good. Please be good. It has trample. It has haste. This thing is a red and 2 generic mana for a 1/3 rare creature, Devil Warrior. This is the Devilish Valet. It has trample and haste and alliance, which is the quick word for whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control. This guy doubles its power until end of turn. And it don't take much. I mean, throw them down. You're in your Naya tokens deck. Make tokens doing something. Make a bunch of creatures and just run them over.
I mean, we have the red land from Kamigawa that's instant speed channel, right? We're just casting that thing as like threat of activation. It's only 3 mana, I believe, to make 2 1/1s at instant speed. It's 4 mana.
It's 4, but it's 1 less for each legendary creature you control, right?
Yeah,
that's what it was.
Legendary permanent.
For Sokanzon.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that, is going to be a big, scary threat of activation. And I think there are some other ones, especially I think in white, like call to arms type abilities that are instant speed as well that can do that kind of thing. If you're maybe playing some modern, should be fun.
I had stimulus package.
Ooh, yeah.
Gonna be a nice combo with this guy. You're just gonna kill people with 4 creatures.
It's so good.
Much less 52 to the 24th power or whatever. This card's very good, is going to end games. Like we mentioned when we first talked about it on the live show, it is a pyrostatic pummeler, which was a niche deck, right? But it had some success. So if you can protect this guy, you're in good shape.
But the pummeler never had trample. You had to give it, you had to provide it, and it could be chumped. So that was really
That's a good point.
Annoying. So this thing has the right words on it. It feels scary, and that's the way I like my Magic cards. Even if it's not, it feels real good. All right, let's move on here to number 5. Ruben, what's number 5?
My number 5 is a card that I had on my list originally because of the name. But I cut some cards from my list that had good names for cards that were also good. But this one also just seems good. We don't really get this effect much. I think it was like Call to the Netherworld or something like that in Ikoria that had this effect and gave some keyword counters, but we've never had it in white. And now we do with Patchup. Patchup is 2 generic and a white for an uncommon. It says return up to 3 target creature cards with total mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's great. Like, my deck is nothing but 1s and 2s. My deck is 1-drop, 2-drop. Oh, you cast a Wrath. Oh, everything's gone forever. Well, guess what? 3 for 1 you. Here's my Usher of the Fallen back. Here's my Luminarch Aspirant back. And now you're dead.
Yeah, this seems very playable in Constructed, not so much in Limited. Yeah, all around, I think it's going to be a nice little bonus for any sort of aggressive creature deck.
Yeah, this is Call of the Death Dweller was the Ikoria card that brought up to 2 target creatures with total converted mana cost, mana value these days of 3 or less from the graveyard, and you put a Death Touch counter. You put a Death Touch counter on either of them and put a Menace counter on either of them. This obviously doesn't do that, but also note you can get 2 Ornithopters and a 3-drop. So you can bring up to 3 creatures, and they don't say they all have to count towards that mana value, which I think is really, really cool. And it's just like flexible and sweet and exciting. I'll take it. All right, Nerd Girl, what's number 5?
All right, number 5 is, I think, going to be a bit of a fan favorite. It's very synergistic. I could see this card doing a lot, and it's a popular creature type, which everybody loves angels. So I could see this being good in very specific decks as well as EDH. We have a 5-mana, 5/3 flyer with Angel of Suffering. It is a Nightmare Angel, which is just an amazing creature type. It has flying. If damage would be dealt to you, prevent that damage and mill twice that many cards. So EDH doesn't really care that much about milling, and a lot of decks really want to have a high volume of cards in their graveyard to work with, and this could be a great engine for that.
Like, I could see you be doing dealing most of this damage to yourself, right? Like, you play Angel Suffering, then deal a bunch of damage to yourself, and mill a whole bunch of cards, then go do something crazy, because that's what it allows you to do then. Yeah. But as a 5-mana, 5/3 flyer on rate, it's good. It's just kind of weird. I don't know how to really evaluate. This is just so hard to evaluate, I feel like.
Yeah, it's very tough to evaluate, but I feel like it's so hard to deal with if you're in a certain combination of colors. There was a card called Gloom Surgeon in Avacyn Restored that said that if it was dealt damage, instead exile that many cards from the top of your library. And that was a 2-mana 2/1. And being a 5/3 that can't get chumped, like, this thing can end games and is impossible for a red deck to deal with, seems very good. Much less the fact that it puts them into your graveyard, which is a resource.
Right. Gaia's Blessing, Immercools of the world will just let you have basically infinite damage to be dealt to yourself.
Gaia's Blessing and Eldrazi with this card are very nice.
Very fun. It's a way you can work that in. Well, from one angel to another, this is one of my favorite creatures of the set, one of my favorite designs in a while. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but as I recall, this was the only rare not previewed. And I'm like, why did you not let anyone preview Giada, Font of Hope? This card is sick. This card is so good. It is a white and a generic mana for a 2/2 rare legendary angel. First of all, it's a sweet 2-mana legendary angel. It has flying and vigilance, and each other angel you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it for each angel you already control. And then you can tap to add a white mana and spend this mana only to cast an angel spell. So it works with all the changelings of the world, which is great. And like, it's 2 mana, it's making the cards better. You're playing that 3 mana, draw a card, gain life as a 3/2. Like, come on. This thing is sick.
Yeah, it does a lot, and there's so many just like angel-themed EDH decks for the sake of being an angel. So this is just going to be an amazing mana dork that also just can punch people in the face.
Absolutely.
2/2 for 2, already good. Mana Bear for a tribal deck, already good. Then it makes everything else bigger. It's crazy insane. As I recall, there was a content creator that did not post what they previewed. So this is my guess for what that would have been. because it's the last rare. It's a sweet legend. It is also a central part of the storyline of the Streets of New Capenna.
That could be why, right? Because the angel thing was at the very end.
Yes.
Right.
And so and also both of the arts that were posted for this card, the main one by Eric Deschamps and the promo one, the fancy one that was done by Scott Fisher. I had to see who did the art. Both have the stained glass wings kind of motif happening, which I really enjoy.
Yeah.
And just a really cool character concept in addition to the art.
Very, very nice. All right. Well, we're moving on here into the top 4. I don't have a 4 or a 3 or a 2, but I'll see you at number 1. Ruben, what's number 4?
Creature type plant dinosaur, ladies and gentlemen. Creature type plant dinosaur. You had me before you even had an ability. Like, I was so happy to see this. Then the art was happening, and it's a T-Rex that is a topiary, and reminded me of We're Back, a dinosaur story. Anybody remember?
I do remember We're Back.
I remember
It's
that
great.
was a giant failure, as I recall.
I love that movie.
What are you talking about?
It failed in the box office.
It failed at the box office and became a cult classic later.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
But obviously the circus dude with the eye and the Macy's Day Parade. Anyway, point is, Topiary Stomper is great. And it makes my heart happy. And it's also a very good card. Topiary Stomper is a generic green for a 4/4 rare plant dinosaur with vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. Cool. And it can't attack or block unless you own 7 or more lands, or you control 7 or more lands. So it gets you to where you want to go eventually. A little bit of a wayward sword tooth action happening, but instead of being able to play extras, it just gives you one from your deck.
Yeah. Another thing that this reminds me of, slightly off topic, is the game Smash Up. You can smash up, plants and dinosaurs, plant aliens, whatever. So it's pretty cool. This art, I remember seeing this, and I don't think I actually looked at the creature type. I just kind of assumed dinosaur and thought, oh, that's weird here, but fine. The fact that it's a plant dinosaur is really, really interesting. I'm curious to see how that is incorporated in any other promotional art or anything. Like, why do we have a plant monster in the set? That doesn't seem quite on brand, but I'm excited for it.
But it's in the streets.
It's a little anachronistic.
Lost them in the streets.
It is a little anachronistic. I think that there are classic movies of specifically taking place in New York where topiaries come to life. You know, obviously in Ghostbusters, the gargoyles come to life, and that's sort of giving us the same feeling from this card. But you're right. There's no direct plot thread where we're like, oh, by the way, the plant dinosaurs happened.
You remember in the noir, story when the plant dinosaur ate someone?
No, you're right. It definitely does stick out a little bit.
Yeah, it's a fossil. There you go. So, but ultimately it's a 3-mana 4/4 with vigilance, and like Wayward Swordtooth wouldn't let you do anything with it until you cracked it open. This lets you at least block with it. No, you can't block with it. At least lets you attack and block with it. When you get to 7 lands, you're going to be at 4 basically immediately. This is a question I feel like it's probably really good, but I kind of just want to play test it and make sure. Question mark.
Yeah.
It seems sweet though, and I like it. All right, let's move on here to Nerd Girls number 4. What you got?
All right, so we don't really think that this set has a ton to offer constructed, or at least that it within the constructed formats and decks that we currently have going, which I think is why a lot of people might be kind of down on it. But I think Vivian on the Hunt is an interesting card, and we've seen green take a pretty substantial decline in the last few months. So let's talk about this 6 mana, 4 colorless, and 2 green planeswalker. Comes into play with 4 loyalty. And the +2 says you may sacrifice a creature. If you do, search your library for a creature card with mana value equal to 1 plus the sacrificed creature's mana value and put it onto the battlefield. Important to note that it doesn't say or less than, so you have to build your deck accordingly. The +1 ability says mill 5 cards, then put any number of creature cards milled this way into your hand. So you get a little extra card advantage there. And then the -1 says create a 4/4 green rhino warrior creature token. It comes into play with 4 loyalty, so you could just do that 3 times before Vivian's even in the realm of danger. That's 12 power on board, and you still get to keep your planeswalker, assuming you're not behind on board. That seems like a lot of things I want to be doing in green.
It's interesting. When there's no ultimate, you're always like, well, okay, so it's like a value salad, right?
Yeah.
And you're paying 6 mana, and over here the tomatoes and the cucumbers, and you may not like the onions, but it's okay. You can move around. Oh, there's cheese, and the cheese is the rhinos. Help me out here, but either way, number +2 being like a weird
birthing pod.
A birthing pod. It's birthing pods. Again, we birthing pod all the time in green. We're just birthing pod all over the place.
We've got Neoform now. We've got Prime Speaker Zagana now. Like we're not unused to this ability. It is a little bit strange to see on a 6-mana planeswalker, but also, when did Vivian show up in the story? Did I just miss when she showed up?
I don't recall. I didn't read much of the story, so I can't tell you. I do know they just kind of like weirdly just was like here, you know what I mean? Like in some of the first previews, they were like, and it's a Vivian. And you're like, oh, Vivian. And then they just like moved around on something else. And you're like, oh, okay. I thought her costume was super rad.
Yeah.
And her
I'm not
abilities are
disappointed that she's here. And this card is dope as heck. So
card's cool. I mean, she immediately goes up to 6 loyalty, which is nice. She immediately defends herself with a good, powerful creature. If you can't get over that, you're going to have 8 power on the board the second time around, which is sweet. And arguable with +1 is drawing cards in green.
+1 is Lead the Stampede. +1 is Lead the Stampede that also puts Unburial Rights into your graveyard. Yeah. Like, not a bad ability.
Yeah, I'll take it. Absolutely. All right, let's move on here to number 3. Ruben, what you got?
I mean, we've talked a little bit. So this set might have the best, in terms of average level of happiness. This set has the most cards that make me happy that I've seen in a very long time. And certainly has the highest value of vehicles. In terms of each individual vehicle's power level, I think is the highest in this set, and they all make me happy. We've already talked about the hearse. I briefly had the limousine on my list, but get in the car, getaway car is insane. Like, I still can't get over how good this card is.
So good.
Getaway car is a 4/3 for 3 generic mana that has haste and cruise for 1. And whenever Getaway Car attacks or blocks, return up to 1 target creature card that crewed it this turn to its owner's hand.
You don't even have to. You don't have to return it.
Up
You can be
to
like,
1.
Up to 1.
Yep. That card got a lot better when I realized that it said up to 1, basically. Because when I first read it, it did not. And I thought that would be kind of weird. It's got a great name, super flavorful. And I think this is definitely something we need in the gangster set.
Absolutely.
I think, we're always playing around on that weird power level of 4 power for 3 mana, and how do you get it, and what do you have to give up, in order to get it, and you have a sweet ability, and what's a getaway card do, and it should be fast and feel cool, and like it checks a lot of boxes, and I love this card. Yeah. All right. Nerd Girl, what's number 3?
All right. So this is a card that makes me happy. One thing, maybe some of you guys might be a little traumatized, just a tiny bit from the last few months, but I don't care. I don't care if you're traumatized. All I want to do is make more cat and dog tokens, okay? So we're going to use Jeannie Faye, Jetmir's second, as my number, what was this? 4?
Number 3, because this is my number 4, like I said, right behind you.
Amazing.
And then, so this is a 3/3 for 3 with 2 hybrid costs there, so it's super easy to cast. It is a legendary creature elf druid that says whenever, or if you would create 1 or more tokens, you may instead create that many 2/2 green cat creature tokens with haste, or that many 3/1 green dog creature tokens with vigilance. So depending on what you need, if you need to trade up, you can make your dogs. If you want your cats to, possibly multi-block some stuff, that's cool too. I like that they kept the cat tokens the same as the Cadillac, considering they're in the same format, and it makes the tokens a lot easier to deal with. And yeah, I think just the idea of having this lady who just has all of these animals with her is super cute. You just have like crazy cat and dog lady. I'm into it.
I mean, there's so much about this card that's just amazing. Like the hybrid cost for these 3 mana ones, it's red, green, and then green or white. So it can be 3 green, a red and 2 green, a white and 2 green. Like this in the Naya tokens deck is just begging. And the fact that, things like Black Market Tycoon exist and can now make hasty cats or vigilant dogs at instant speed whenever you make tokens ever. Like, this card is so sweet. This card is absolutely unreal.
Yeah, this is an angelic visitation. We don't really get token replacement a ton.
Right.
So the fact that we get to replace our tokens with something that is relevant is huge. End of turn getting 3 power dogs. During combat getting 2/2 haste cats. It's debatable whether you want Rin and Ciri Inseparable to be your commander if this card is available. Like, because the rest of the deck is just already so insane. I mean, I guess that this is much more token based as opposed to cat and dog based. So you probably just put this into your Ren and Ciri deck. But yeah, 3/3 for 3 that upgrades every token you make forever. It's amazing.
This, like, you have to kill it on sight. It has to die. You cannot let them untap with this card, or you're probably going to lose in some weird way you didn't see coming because they just made 1 million power out of nowhere. Card's sick.
And they're cats.
And the cats and dogs. So, that's amazing.
It also probably goes infinite in some weird combo. Like, this is the kind of wording that I would expect. Because I'm pretty sure that there are ways to be like, sacrifice a creature, make X 1/1s where X was the sacrifice creature's power. And so this could just go infinite with that. I think Tooth and Claw does that. There's some other cards. But for sure, this card's going to get broken. And it already doesn't need to, because it's already a 3/3 for 3.
Which is already great. And it can be just 3 green mana. Like, that's amazing. Let's move on here to number 2. Ruben, what's number 2?
My number 2 makes me happy. And I put it at number 2 because it's also very good. I think that this is going to see a lot of constructed play. And I've seen no one talking about it yet. And I'm confused as to why. I really think Unlucky Witness is extremely powerful. And people are just not talking about it. Unlucky Witness is a 1/1 for a red mana. Creature, human, citizen, that when they die, exile the top 2 cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play one of those cards. That's insane. Am I wrong?
It seems nuts. I mean, we have let's see, what's the one from Innistrad? The
Doom Traveler?
Doom Traveler, right?
Yep.
And in the black one we got the zombie that makes a treasure or -1/-1.
Shambling Ghast.
Shambling Ghast, right?
I mean, we've also gotten Hunted Witness, which saw some play,
right?
But those are, I mean, Shambling Ghast is the closest, I think, to the value that you get from Unlucky Witness. But mostly, it's like when this dies, you effectively draw a card for 1 mana in red.
Yeah, I mean, that's my turn 1 red, deck.
Yeah,
I mean, it would be interesting. Red has been out of play for a bit. So I'm interested to see if things like this can kind of bring it back into the fold.
Much less, this is a great thing with casualty and limited. It's a citizen for all your citizen triggers. So all of that as well.
I mean, Deadly Disputes right there on turn 2, waiting for more value. The red-black deck that sacrifices stuff just needs more value. It's right there. Like, let's go. I like it. That card is sweet. Let's move on here to Nerd Girls number 2. What you got?
I've got kind of a boring one. I'm sure this is on Evan's list, and I felt like I wanted to put more interesting, unique cards on my top 3, top 4. But like, this card is just sweet. I love the art, and I think it's going to be quite good. So let's go ahead and talk about the Elspeth. Resplendent. We had a 5 mana, 5 loyalty planeswalker, 3 colorless, and a white. The plus ability is +1 for choose up to 1 target creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it, along with another counter for flying, first strike, lifelink, or vigilant. This is similar to the Ikoria counters, where these are abilities that stay on your creature for as long as they're in play. So that's one of the first times we're really seeing these things come back with any you know, large volume. We've seen him as like a one of here and there from sets since, but this is serious. Giving flying or first strike is impressive, and it doesn't quite protect itself by creating a body, but it certainly makes it far more likely that it is protected. The -3 says look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may put a permanent card with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield with a shield counter on it. Put the rest in the bottom in a random order. This shield counter is going to be silly. It works as card draw. It is a little random, but digging 7 deep is quite nice.
A lot.
And it's -7. Remember, it comes into play with 5 loyalties. So you only need to plus it twice to be able to create 5 3/3 angel creature tokens with flying, in addition to having your other creatures. And you have like a 2-mana angel lord that makes all of these better. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting standard format, and I hope we get to just slaughter people with a bunch of angels.
I mean, we have angel tools already. The black-white angel stuff from Strixhaven is fantastic and has a lot of this stuff on the curve as you would want it. I think Wizards is really good these days at providing, like, knowing that they are like sort of tickling that, there's an angel deck out there. There's a tokens deck out there, and there's going to be no perfect way to build the angel deck. And sometimes Elspeth's on top, and sometimes you don't run Elspeth at all. And there's reasons for doing all of that. And I love that. That's brilliant. Like it's a theme, but it's not just like, here's your 1-drop, here's your 2-drop, here's your 3-drop. It's really clear what you should be doing. That to me is super boring.
Yeah. This Elspeth is dope. It takes 3 turns to get to a very relevant ultimate.
Oh yeah.
Most of the time I ignore the ultimate. This ultimate is extremely relevant. Not only because it puts 15 power on the board, but also because we have a lot of stuff that we can do with those triggers of creatures coming into play or making tokens, right? Like getting 5 creatures in play turns Jetmir on, turns like when you make a token do X on, like there's a bunch of stuff that the ultimate does. Much less the fact that the +1 makes your board presence insane. Like a +1/+1 counter and any of these keyword counters is unbelievable.
Right.
And the -3 is like a collected company or a turn timber symbiosis, but it gets a permanent and puts a shield counter on it. So you can put like 3 mana planeswalkers into play with this card.
Yeah. The other thing, like outside of gameplay, can I just say how beautiful the art is on this card?
Mm-hmm.
And like her cape being like angel wings was such a beautiful touch.
So sick.
Yeah. Anna Steinbauer absolutely killed it with the pack art. I also really like Tom Roberts's sort of Art Deco art. And then the third art for her is by KR Hearts.
Yeah, super duper cool versions of an awesome character. I'm glad Elspeth is back. Like, she just had to find the back door or something and, Nykthos or whatever. But she got there and she slipped into Streets New Capenna in the sweetest outfit ever. And this was my number 3, as this is your number 2, because that's what we do here. But that's okay because the card is fantastic. All right, let's move on here to our number 1, and my number 2 is somebody else's number 1, and that's okay, but we'll figure it out. Let's move on here to number 1. Ruben, what you got?
This was always going to be my number 1. I think that this is probably this could be your number 2. I didn't name. You know what? I actually don't think this is your number 1.
It's not,
because I forgot that there was a thing that exists elsewhere. But this card is dope. This card was always going to be my number 1. As soon as I saw this card previewed, I said this card is a staple in every format that exists because it's a 1-mana unconditional counterspell.
Mm-hmm.
It also makes me happy because of its name. It's an offer that you can't refuse.
You can't bring me Spider-Man an offer you can't refuse.
An offer you can't refuse is 1 blue mana for an instant. It's an uncommon that says counter target non-creature spell. Period. Full stop.
Full stop.
Its controller creates 2 treasure tokens. That can be dangerous, but almost no spells. The older you get, 2 treasure tokens is a pittance.
Okay, well, this was my number 8, and it is a wonderful card. I think Swan Song proved that even if it's conditional, or even since very little conditions, it's not always that powerful because sometimes giving them that 2/2 flyer would kill you. Sometimes giving those treasure tokens will give them your opponent, to be ahead too far, too early. It's very sort of path to exile in that way. But it's also, late in the game, a terrific top deck because you don't care if they have a bunch of mana if you're just back and forth trying to make them, make a move. So yeah, this was a hell of a card and a fantastic card name. I mean, you can't get any better.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's flexible in that, like, if you are countering, more of a late game deck, treasures don't necessarily hurt. If you're countering the early game deck that's more aggressive, you just kind of need to prevent a couple of hits from some of these creatures for you to be able to stabilize, for you to get to your Doomscar, and for you to get to other things. So maybe you give them more treasures, they can dump out their hand a little quicker, but you didn't take that initial first 2 hits from the creature or whatever, when you have to have these early counters, you just kind of want to stop whatever they're trying to do so you can stabilize.
There you go. All right. So, Nerd Girl, what's your number 1 and my number 2?
All right. This was always going to be a top 3 card. Like, it's the main piece of this, whole set. It's the premium art we're seeing all over the place. And there's no way you can't love this Obnixilis art. It's insane. The Adversary is a 3-mana planeswalker, comes into play with 3 loyalty with Casualty X. The +1 ability says each opponent loses 2 life unless they discard a card. If you control a demon or a devil, you gain 2 life. The -2 says create a 1/1 devil creature token with when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. And then the -7, thankfully it's only comes in with 3 power. Target player draws 7 cards and loses 7 life.
Yeah, so the loyalty starting at 3 is great, but the Casualty X, you sacrifice an ideally 7 power something or other, and then be able to fire off that ultimate immediately and drawing 7 and losing 7, but that's okay because you just drew 7. That's the dream. And that's why this thing's really expensive. And it's going to be really expensive until we figure out one way or another it's as sick and fun and interesting as it sounds, or it's not that good and it sure read nice and wasn't that a cool period in Magic.
It's still pretty. If you look at the full
gorgeous
art, like they have this massive one with him over the city. It's so pretty.
Oh yeah, it's terrific.
Yeah,
so
this card's really spectacular. It's the only card with Casualty that isn't an instant or a sorcery. So it's even in the context of just this set, it's very difficult to discern whether this card is good.
Yeah.
I think it is going to be. There is going to be a deck that wants this, and I don't know what it is yet, but being able to make, 1/1 devils for 3 mana, even if it didn't have Casualty X, that's pretty good.
It's the Oni Cult Anvil Planeswalker. It's only 3 mana, and you sacrifice a 1/1, and you get these 2 little things firing off like crazy or whatever, and that's cool. And that just kind of keeps happening until something else triggers a trigger to trigger the trigger, and on you go. So that card is terrific in my number 2 because I loved it, and the special artwork version and the striped suit is just incredible.
Striped armor suit.
Striped armor.
The pinstripe armor is classy.
So good.
Goodness gracious. Well, y'all saw some cards and it was number 1. I saw a card and this was my number 1 with a bullet. The moment I saw it, I love this freaking card. I love the idea of it. I love any Magic card that makes me think totally in a different way. Just like, wow, I can all these different cards I've played with for all these years. This is a weird way for me to interact with them now. And I just freaking love that. And there's combos and it's unique and it's cool. And we have a card, for God's sake. This is equipped Planeswalker on it. Luxior Giada's Gift is just the sickest damn thing. It's 1 generic mana for a mythic legendary artifact equipment. Oh yeah, strap in. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each counter on it. An equipped permanent isn't a planeswalker and is a creature in addition to its other types. Loyalty abilities can still be activated. You equip a planeswalker for just 1 generic mana or anything else for 3 generic mana. This thing has really sick combos. It turns your Super Friends deck just on its head. Just like it's just sideways now. You're like, my planeswalkers can do what? Obnixilis is going to do what to your face? Lots of scary things. This card, I have to brew around it. I have to craft 4 of it immediately. I've got to see what this thing can do. I hope to God it's half as good as I hope it is.
Yeah, it's a unique card. I could see it going into the Super Friends deck, but also there's a lot of new counters going on. We have the Elspeth putting a counter of your choice on. I'm wondering if we can see this with cards like the 3/3 colorless card. The
Mechagodzilla.
yeah, with the Mechagodzilla.
Crystalline Giant.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Things like that could just make this really interesting.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's do some countery stuff. That sounds like fun.
I'm really looking forward to seeing. I mean, on a regular old planeswalker, this isn't particularly exciting. It makes your Vivian a 7/7 or whatever, right? But on something like a Dakon Shadow Slayer, where it comes in with a number of counters equal to the number of lands you control, or on an Ob Nixilis, where you can casualty like a Ball Lightning and make it a 6/6, that's insane. There are some crazy potential ideas with this card that I'm really excited to see. And you're right, there's nothing that's ever been like this.
And those are my favorite Magic cards, where I'm just like, man, this is cool and different and unique, and you showed me something new, and I love it. All right, that was our top 10 Streets of New Capenna cards. You'll see them on screen right now if you review. Take a look at my list, Nerd Girl's list, Ruben's top 10, and we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about, and we'll select our favorite to win $50 worth of anything at CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you, Nerd Girl.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Ruben.
I'm glad that we came to this arrangement.
I'm glad that I didn't need to use my special set of skills.
No, I think we came. I think that you and I have an understanding.
I think we came to an understanding between the two of us. You gave me a
Goofballs.
card. I gave you your knees. All right, let's see here. Move to our final
You
slide.
got a real nice podcast there. Be a shame if something were to happen to it.
Be terrible, wouldn't it?
Sorry.
We couldn't finish without getting that in there.
Oh, my God.
We go to the final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsors, CardHoarder.com and AltarSleeves.com, my co-host, MTG Nerd Girl, and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching and listening, and hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv at Magic Mikes, on Twitter at Magic Mikes Cast, our Magic Mikes subreddit, and like the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. Or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.